Hi friends, I'm Chris Micke and I always wanted to do something that has probably never been done before, like I'm gonna do it. I want to compare these synths in one big rush. And it's not that easy. First of all, I need this Bluetooth mic to get into the video there. And then I have to record each one of these synths into Cubase. It's about 16 tracks live. I go from one to the other. And I just tell you some things about what I think about these synths, how do they compare to each other, and do some playing, not elaborated, maybe it's all kind of the same, that you get an impression, what is different, why should I buy or leave the Moog 1 alone or the OBX8. So I'm going to start with the Moog 1, then go to the Matriarch, then to the Voyager vintage one, then I take a 76 ARP Odyssey, then I go to the Prophet 10, go over to the Waldorf Quantum, then Novation Peak, and then sequential Rev 2, Oberheim OBX8, and in the end I take the Jupiter X. So this will be very hard for me to do. I'm not a native English speaker, but maybe it's interesting for you and you get an impression and make up your mind and we get into a discussion. You can write down, well, I can add this or criticism or whatever. So it's all in one big rush. Let's have a look how it works. Okay, here we go. So, Moog 1, first of all, this is a wonderful instrument. The whole thing is a piece of art to me, how it's done, and this is what I believe is one of the most beautiful synths I've ever seen, how they did it. Well, it's very subjective, but this wooden thing and how heavy it is, how it's made, the poties and everything, and the screen. And it can sound like a Moog. You hear? And you hear also this analog mojo with this instrument. And the filters are very snappy. And the whole thing is very complex with the 3 oscillators and the ability to do many things. But when I started to work with it, well, I found some nice sounds. I did by myself, like this Oberheim sound. But you hear it needs quite a long time to warm up, and it's even after firmware 1.5, it's still like that. What I found, I made sounds like this here, and this is to me a typical Moog 1 sound, but it's not a typical Moog sound. It's a little bit. It has a very own character. You can do sounds with this. I would never say this comes from a Moog, and I cannot do with all the other synths here. So very, very interesting that you get this sort of organ like. Well, this is a typical Moog sound, but then you get things like this, and it sounds nasal, like it's coming through the nose sometimes. What I like about this is the synth effects are quite interesting. I think they made it with Eventide. So all in all, this is a synth I'm never finished with. I have to program it, have to do my own things and look for the sweet spots here. Other synths, you'll see later, you get the sweet spot immediately. So it's very special to program this. You must program it. Don't take, you can take the sounds that come along with it, but I would say this is a typical thing you have to work with endlessly and do your own sounds. What I also like about this one is, of course, the arpeggiator is very nice, yes. And so on. A little bit mixed emotions about this. The emotion is there as it comes, how it's done, but from the sound I found it takes a long time, minimum half a year to get into it and get something out of it. that I personally like. Maybe you like sounds like this, I don't know. What was a big surprise for me, and let me check the camera a little bit, put it up, is the Matriarch. And it's astonishingly cheap for what it's doing, yes. And with this synth, I immediately had the idea, this is more. The keyboard is very nice. But you cannot program it, but I like this concept of going back in time. The colors, well, it's on you if you like it. This black edition, it's over now, you don't get it anymore. I would have bought that one for me, so I fumbled around a little bit with gaffer tape to customize it, but the synth itself is very, very nice. And there's one thing, it's okay, it's totally analog. I have this Euro rack up here and it totally fits in there. You probably know that, but from the sound, I get this Rick Wakeman, Emerson Lake, Keith Emerson sound much easier with this one here than with the Moog 1. That was quite interesting for me. What I also really love about this thing is this analog delay. And you can also use it like this. And do experimental stuff with that. So this is a real monster for me. I really love this synth. The only thing is that you cannot program it and get the programs back. This is something the next one does here. And it's also Moog-wise quite a special synth. It's a Moog Voyager. And this is a beast for life. Listen to this. It goes down like that. The Model D here, and it's also, maybe the Model D is a little bit more aggressive with the filters and with the oscillators. I'm not that sure, but this is 1 octave more, and you have the possibility to program it. Plus, this was Bob's and Herb Deutsch, rest in peace. Those guys were so brilliant. This was their last baby. You can clap it down here, fits into a flight case, and you can use this here. And it was the innovative way to do a second Model D variant. And this wooden thing is even better than with the Moog 1. What they did those days, it's really, the hardware is so fantastic. And I really, this is probably my favorite synth. If I would go to stage and play soloing like Adam Holzman, look at Adam Holzman on YouTube when he plays it. He's a master on this instrument, even did some sounds on it. Then you see how it fits into the mix, or even against world-class guitar players, he makes a standing there with the sounds from this Moog. And all in all, the Matriarch and this Moog is for soloing. It's really brilliant. The Moog 1 is more for experimenting and maybe some pads. It's not really a pad machine or this polyphonic stuff, and maybe the 16 voice is better than the 8 voice, because then you can stack things. Okay, you have this unison here. But all in all, the Moog I like the most is, for me, the Voyager, and then followed up by the Matriarch and the Moog 1. It's just my personal taste. And this is an old synth here from 1976. It's an ARP Odyssey, and just that you can hear how does this old synth sound. If you want to listen to that, My first encounter with this ARP sound was, well, okay, The Who did some things with ARP, but Elton John, Funeral for a Friend from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. This is such incredible ARP sound. This is for me the typical ARP sound. If you listen, it's a little bit softer and well, it's incredible, by the way, what this old synth did those days. I mean, it's decades ago, and now you have a Moog 1 and listen to this, and in some places I really love this more. And all this vintage discussion, well, it's theory, but if you have one like this, you immediately feel it's got this feeling, it's got this heritage, and it's astonishing what such an old machine was able to do. These are sounds that will last for hundreds of years. I still believe that this can still be useful, and that's the point about good instruments. You know, this is a really good instrument. It's timeless, and this is an attempt, the Matriarch, to do this again. And the Moog 1 goes into totally different fields for me. So as we are now here with heritage and old synth, and let's move over to one of my all-time favorite, probably yours also. It's this one. You immediately realize this sound, yes, and so what can I say about the Prophet 10? Also, the hardware, it's a piece of art like the Voyager. And also, so sorry that Dave left us. It was one of his first babies, and it was the last he gave it to himself, I think, to his 70th birthday. And it's still a classic. Yes, if you're into these 80s sounds and you know these sounds like this one. And also sounds like this. So here we come into fields where I was a little bit, disappointed. Well, it's mono, yes, it's mono, but that's okay. When you go to the studio, I tend to not record these things in stereo like Moog 1. It's like butter over everything else, you know, if you go into stereo pans. So this is great for recording, and the sounds themselves sound quite profane sometimes, yes. It's not this bright, and I show you I'm the nicest synth. But if you listen, Running in the Family from level 42, the keyboarder is doing this. This is perfect. If you're playing in a band, the Prophet 10 is great synthesizer. You just need to calibrate it or tune it every now and then. But this is normal. The Moog 1 is much more complicated as it comes to tuning as this one. So you do that, it gets adapted to the room, and then you can play here. And yes, for itself, it's you use it for these simple things, but within an arrangement, it's great. Here, you listen, this is a little bit out of tune, yes? So, for itself, this is nice. You might be disappointed by the sounds, but believe me, within arrangements it's perfect, because it's not, here I am the synth, and everything is not worth anything. So this is great. And what's also great is this polymod thing. With such a simple, genius idea, you can do very fast and very many sweet spots in this synth. You go into fields. I could have never imagined that such a simple setting allows you to do such great sounds, and that's also an aspect of very good synths. Not this, I have millions of knobs and menu diving like in digital synth. You have the setting, and this is epic, yes? So I really love it. I really love to touch it, and it's wonderful. And yes, so when you have something like that, then you might think about something like this here, yes? And this is the Waldorf Quantum, and the Quantum does everything in my setting here that the analog guys don't do. In some cases, Moog 1 can do sounds like sound like FM here, but you have all these models like wavetable, waveforms, particle, resonator, and even FM right now, and then you do things like this. Yes, this is not typical for the Quantum, but the question is, what is typical for the Quantum? If I want to have some sort of orchestra sound, I do like this. Or if I want to have a Moog solo, I've Emerson style. Listen to this. Or if I ever want to have a clavinet, I do. Or if I want to have some FX. So, and this is what I would use the Quantum mostly for. I thought, well, this synth will do everything the others can't do. I have this piano stuff and whatever. No, no, no. The Quantum is a sound design machine. And even I have Halion 6, I have Contact, I have Crusher X, and all these things you have here. Also wavetable on the PC. And you have this big monitor. You say, why do I need this? The first thing is the whole setting, how it's done by Axel Hartmann. Hi, Axel. He's a very nice designer, probably the best the world has ever seen as it comes to synthesizers. He even laid his hand on the Moog 1, I think. But this is typical Waldorf and done by Axel. And some people complain about this colors, but I think that's great. That's exactly what I need. And if you do sound design, you can immediately do that. Things like this. You go to totally different fields, yes? If I take a bit crusher, or use these different models here. Or different types of filters, and the filters. You have so many filters, like this Nave filters from the early wavetable synths by Waldorf, and different modes. You can put them in a row or two independently, like independent, and then you have this filter and this filter, and you can attach one of the. So it takes you to fields that are really unimaginable. And they always do this new firmwares. Now this is capable to do 16 voices like the Iridium. I don't need it really, because then I have half of the filters that are not analog. The filters are analog in this 8 voice mode. And this is great, because these filters, this make a different for me, yes. And the whole section of the effects is very easy to handle. I go into the chorus here, have a flanger there. Of course, I cannot show what it all does here. It's got also a very nice arpeggiator. If we go to the next sound here, sometimes it takes a little bit time to load the samples. Also thanks to Kurt Ader. I think Kurt was also on this. He's doing all the sound design for Korg. Kronos, a genius guy. By the way, thanks also to Paul Schilling, who did some sounds, I think on the Prophet 10 here. I'm probably sure also on the Oberheim. These are guys who really provide, Howard Scarr did some here. So thank you to those guys who show the way, how it's working, where to go here, yes? So, we have this arpeggiator. Change. Go in here, use many kernels, take different shapes, and you see it's very fast, and you go to other. Take a different type here. What can I say? This is a perfect addition to this high-end and analog stuff. I always thought, what should I take there? And this is really great. I really love it. Yes. So let's go to another digital synth. I always was a little bit skeptical about digital synth because of this DSP stuff, and then FPGA came along, and Novation did this peak. Yes, and the peak is not that expensive. Yeah, okay, it's maybe about 1,239. It's a lot of money, of course. But it's a very nice synth, and what I like about it is also the setting here, and FPGA is very fast, and the sound quality is very good. And you have so many things that you can use here. Also, you have access via their server, via USB, and can download all these patches from other people. Well, that's an advantage of digital synths, of course. What can I say? Yes, you have this. But listen to this, and the effects here are really, really nice. I like it. And everything can be synced, also the delay. So here we have the delay. Go out with the reverb. Go to envelope depth. Go down with the level. So it's very, very easy to program this thing. That's also what I like. And it does sound like this. This reminds me a little bit to the Quantum here, because it's also digital, and to go into these fields I could not have. Yeah, this sounds analog in a way. So best thing about this, if you use a key step to do this, you have something like this, yeah? Just to hold, and then you can get in here and do some snappier things. Overdrive, and then do some synced delay. Put up the time. Do some chorus, reverb. Working with the filters. And so on, yes. So it's very powerful. It's small. You can put it in the backpack and take it along with you. I use this normally with an MPC-1, yes, or even with a Roland TR-8 or something like that. Then it's great as a basis to do something with the following synth here. And this is the Rev 1, the Prophet Rev 1. Let me put the camera a little bit besides. From here you can see Rev 1, and when I started to buy these sort of things, I started with the Rev 2, not the Rev 1. Sorry. So. I had this, and then I bought the Prophet 10 and then the Moog 1, and I said, okay, I don't need it anymore. No, it's not true. This is a brilliant synth, and it's getting more and more expensive. This is only an 8-voice, and it's about 1800 or 1900 right now. And I know why, because it's really great, and it has much more possibilities than the Prophet 10 here. Yes? Okay, the basic sound is not as thick as I get it from the Prophet 10, yes, or even the Oberheim here. This is for sure, but this is not so heavy, not so big. I would use that on stage. And you can, and also has an arpeggiator. Let me have a look. Yes. And we go into this hold mode. And then you can play around with the filters. And it has this different phaser, different effects. You cannot stack the effects like you can do with the peak. There you can use different effects at one time. But here it's not possible. No, I don't like that too much. But it's useful for stage work. If you really want to have nice and super nice effects, you should use an external effect. Yes. Also very well done, and I really recommend this for players who want to play on the stage and don't want to take this big beast and work with that. Yes. So it's a very, very nice synth, and also with the woodwork, and I really like it. And all these opportunities here to manipulate with clock sync, with sync, and different waveforms, of course, and you have a sub-octave, you have the noise, and some sort of oscillator slope. It's a, yeah, it's like this knob here, vintage knob, they call it on the Prophet 10. It gets a little bit unstable then and gets more this analog, old school sort of sound then. The synth I like the most here of my analog synth is this one. Yes, this is the Oberheim. And what can I say? The Oberheim, I always wanted to have one. I started in the 70s, end of the 70s, then the 80s, and I've seen this OBXA, OBX, all these different Oberheims, but they were so expensive, so I thought, okay, let's leave it. And then I've seen that Dave, before he passed away, teamed up with Tom Oberheim and some others and made this, and that was the moment that I said, okay, in this case I must buy one, and I did not regret it. You play this thing, it's much more stable than the Prophet 10 to me, and you have immediately, yeah, it's very subtle. The filters, of course, we know it's this Oberheim 12 dB filters, while you can also switch here to other filters. You have all these different models, but this is a synth that is absolutely, that gives everything I'm sometimes missing with the others. The Moog 1, I'm not sure if I could do such a sound in this warmth. Yes, maybe. It's and you have this. Listen to this. Listen to these filters and the movement of the sounds. And wow, it's just wow, yes? It's lyrical, it's also lyrical. For me, the best Oberheim player that I've ever heard is not Jump from Van Halen, while Eddie was a giant, we all know. No, it's Lyle Mays by Pat Metheny Group. Add a little bit of reverb here and a little bit of delay and work a little bit with the filter. And you have a typical sound that maybe Lyle Mays also use. Yeah? And that was the sound I was looking for. You also get this kind of Wurlitzer sound. Okay, so nothing beats Oberheim to me. I just used it on a recording with classical guitar I did, and I always thought which sort of synths would add in there and would not kill the classical guitar. It was the Oberheim, nothing else. There are guys like out there I'm in contact with, they say, okay, the OB6 is my favorite because the OB6 also provides these sort of sounds, but is more modern and has the arpeggiator and more effects on board and is smaller. But as a player, I need this octave, of course I need, or even 2 octaves more. No, it's 1 octave more, I think, here. I'm not missing the effects here. The arpeggiator must be updated by then. It's not really good by now, but if they do a new firmware, I'm pretty sure they will fix it. And using this different OBX8, OB8, OBXA, one of my favorites, you go into the groups here and immediately you have this. Yeah, no. Okay, let's do it right. Yes, you do all this, but that's not what I go for here. I want to program it and do my own sounds, and this is also very easy. It's a little bit like on the Prophet 10 there, quite easy setting and also very astonishing. If I have the Moog 1 with all these possibilities, and here I want this bread and butter sounds that are really Oberheim, and immediately I get there or take a sound and go in there and change it in a second. Yes, it's totally for the noise you have to go into page 2 here, and there's a noise level and just cut it down. So I love this synth. What can I say? Last one, and this is a digital one again. Let me have a look here that I can play it. Is the Jupiter X. Must be careful a little bit. Okay. Jupiter X. Well. That's a little tricky. Okay, do it like this. What I like about the Jupiter X is it's also well done. The hardware is really nice. It fits into this other hardware, and the design is a classical Jupiter design. So let's have a look. You go into scene. Careful with the mic here. So this is all we all know this. It sounds like the 90s, sounds all like all of these hits, and you go into the Jupiter or the Juno or JX8P. SH101 is not that great for me. XV5080, and you go in here and have all these things like Megas, This is like a workstation, you know, but it's a synth. But what I found, this is not a programming thing for me. The whole concept is like you have Jupiter, from Jupiter A to Jupiter X and all these things, and the layer of the hardware does not always fit into, for example, Juno 106 is different from the oscillator setting like the modern Jupiter X, and then only two work, and so this is really weird in a way to find yourself through this, and the whole philosophy of the setting here is quite complicated. It's not so easy to find, or I don't use it for really doing my own sounds. I just take it like this and use for example, use just the arpeggiator on, and then you have this rhythm type stuff. It reminds me a little bit to this Korg wave station. Not the sound is better, of course, but I have the tritone LE here. Does kind of the same in this combi mode, yes. But who does really use that in a live situation? What I use is not maybe the arpeggiator, but then it must be synced, which is not so easy with the MPC I found. Just use it like that. Make a scene with let's say 10 great sounds and use those, and that's it. Yes, and for that it's really great, and it has great sounds, of course. But what I personally like most, and for that I must put on the mic here just a second. Is this thing you see up here? Sorry, I must put it a little bit down. You have this model bank, and I downloaded a model. This is not the new Vox synth. Yes. Test. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 1 2 just. And I really like this vocoder. It's probably the best I've ever heard, yes. And some people agree with me on that it's really great. And I just worked on a record where I used it, and believe me, this is worth it. You got this stick here, and can take my cell phone and download these models here. If you have an account, yes, it's 99 bucks. If you buy the stick, the first year is for free. And then you have this one, and also I put off the mic here. JD800 on here is really a great synth. I had one many years ago and didn't realize that it was so far ahead its time. Yes. And these songs, we know them somehow, but it's always amazing if you go back to this. So what can I say? You've been around the synth here now, and every synth here has its own legitimacy, but in the end, I found the Oberheim I would take for this emotional sounds, the Voyager I would take for soloing, and the Novation Peak for this arpeggiator thing. The Waldorf I would take for sound design. It has 4 outputs. You can even do some quadraphonic stuff. Reinhold Heil made a show on that on the last Super Booth. I'm gonna be there this May also, 2023. And have a look around, see some guys, what's happening. And this is, of course, also for stage work, yes. In combination with the Modi X here, which has a CP7 piano inside and some nice Rhodes and some nice FM sounds. These two synths are great for live, and maybe you add a sequential Rev 2 and the Voyager, then you have a perfect setting where you can do mostly everything you need. The rest is esoteric stuff, I don't know, or just because you love the design of the Moog 1 and the design of the Oberheim, or you always wanted to have one. But yes, I would end up with that. This one, the Rev 2 and the Voyager, and if you want luxury, Oberheim, and that's it. Okay, maybe you have different opinions, but I'm finished now. I hope everything was recorded. Hard job here by Nuendo, which is running in the background. And so let's stop here and get into discussions and make up your own mind. What do you think? It's not representative. It's all in one take, and what came to my mind. Much